Hey, I'm Steven.
And I'm Brandon.
And we're independent hairdressers. We started this podcast because there's a movement in our industry.
Hairdressers are embracing independence more than ever. These are the stories of those hairdressers.
We hope you find them inspirational and educational and show you that independence does not mean isolation. You're a part of this revolution, and we're here to support that. I want to address our audience and say welcome to our show.
What a pleasure.
Yeah. This is Lyn Christian, and I really rewrote your intro a few times, like, okay, here's what she does, here's who she is, and I couldn't capture the essence of what I feel our relationship is and who you are and what you do. You know, like maybe there's that technical side of things that would be the coach, and that does describe some things, but I just want you to tell it if you're okay with that.
And so, you know, what you're struggling with is actually a gift that we mined early at SoulSalt, because there is one part that's technical of what I do that is palpable and tangible, and you can say, well, this increased my income, this increased my capacity to have good relationships, this increased my business by 10%, we retained this many clients or this many employees. You know, there's a tangible return on investment. And yet, you're one of the key clients that I would say, okay, if you want to see an archetype, you would be part of that archetype, where you can come in and you're so open that we actually talk about things and we get to shifts and growth that is more of the esoteric. And so early on, I'd been coaching about 4 or 5 years, just to do the long story roundabout, because I think in story we find the meaning rather than just giving a great introduction. That misses the story. Those are just words trying to set a stage, but a story actually brings people in. So I knew I would be, as an entrepreneur, I'd learned a few things in my business world and my business life that I thought I'd be the worst person to name my business. It would be cheesy or not full of meaning. It would be from my own perspective. And the perspective that really matters is, what does the client get and what do they experience when they come into the coaching relationship with me? So instead of naming my company, I worked for about 4 or 5 years and then turned to my best clients, the people that I felt like were really the key people that I could help and support in a way that was probably heads and shoulders above the others. And they all had the same experience of saying, there's one part that, you know, I focus better, I manage my time better, I'm more successful at work, and they could pinpoint metrics. And then the other part was they couldn't. And so the brander said, well, that sounds like you're helping people access the salt of their soul. Now, salt of the soul as a name for a business didn't resonate with me. It was hard to get it out of my mouth, so I knew intuitively it wasn't the right thing. So I just transposed it and said, well, what if we call us SoulSalt? And perfect. So clients named the company, and we try to stay true to that, of assisting people in one part, who are you and what do you need in the tangible, palpable world? And one part, who are you on a deeper, more existential level, and who are you becoming? And who are you here to be? And what's the best part of you that needs to be activated? Yes, so in a nutshell, if you want to know what I use as I describe my work, I just simply like to work with people who want to earn a living and or make a contribution doing the things that inspire them.
Which should be everybody.
I agree. I think that's why we're here. And I wanted that for myself, and I got it. And I want to support other people who want that for themselves and maybe make it so they get to it easier and faster and more elegantly.
I can sum it up by saying my experience with when I think of the term SoulSalt, because as you know, I can wax on, just talk and talk philosophically and esoterically for a long time and talk about my soul. And then you really help develop that, but then add the salt to it. And when I think of the salt, like, help me create action based on that and help me turn into something tangible, because I got the talking part down, and then it's the action and the emotions and all that you've really helped me out with. But actually the exploration part too. So you're right. I love that it's a balance of those two things.
It's a balance. Yeah. And, you know, actually when the name came to be, coach I was working with, my day job was to be director of innovation at Franklin Covey Coaching. And one of the coaches on the staff gave me a book about the history of the world according to salt, is the essence of that book. And I looked it up and I looked at the periodical table and the elements that make up salt. And it's made up of 2 elements that on their own can be volatile. one can kill you instantly and the other one can automatically combust without hardly any noticeable provocation. And you put them together and they become the saline, the salt that we have in our eyes so that we can see, in the womb so that we have a balanced place to live. So, if your salt levels are off, you can see this in athletics and in competition. People need to make sure that they have the right amount of sodium in their body so that they can push themselves. And so it was an interesting dialogue I had just with a name once it was born to realize that's what we're doing with people, is we're taking these pieces of themselves that on their own may not be as effective, but put together, it gives them the sustaining life, the thing that they've been dreaming they could have, and now they can actually have it.
And something that could be a poison to them, you turn it into their strength, it sounds like.
Yes, so let's go with that, because that's a really good comment. There are about 3 of the dominating constructs of SoulSalt are be strong, be true, be focused. So if you look at the first strand of being a strong individual, we all have strengths. Unfortunately, or fortunately, because life is a journey, and if we had it in an owner's manual when we were born, we would probably benefit in some ways, but maybe not learn so much, because we just read the owner's manual and think we understand ourselves. But we all have a unique and almost unlimited combination of strengths, and they are the things that leave us feeling stronger when we leverage them. They leave us feeling jazzed about the thing we just did. Sometimes we get comments from people like, they might say, "How did you do that?" And we're perplexed because we look at them and we go, "What do you mean? Everybody can do this." Because we do it so easily, we assume it's a human innate endowment that everybody can do that, because we can. We start to listen to those things and realize, no, there's something about us that's far more precise and honed in, and they're picking up on that, and we've never noticed because it was second nature to us. Or if we have an area where we have some passion and some interest, and lo and behold, we start playing with it, and we can actually feel ourselves accelerating and getting better and better and better. Those are strengths, but they can become a poison of such if we don't cultivate them, if we don't become aware, because they're so strong and they're going to be inside of us no matter what, that they could actually arm wrestle us. And so I would say that over the years, about 70% of my client base has come in complaining about a weakness, which actually we found out, no, it's a strength having its way with you. And you just need to recognize what that strength is and then how to manage it so it doesn't manage you. Because a weakness is something that leaves you feeling weaker, even if you're good at it. Even if you're a brilliant public speaker. I have a relatively famous client who's working on her 3rd book, and because most coaching is confidential and I don't have her permission to mention her name, she called up 2 or 3 times last year just in this terrible state of unhappiness and depression because she had to go on stage. She's really good on stage. She's inspiring, but it doesn't leave her feeling stronger. It leaves her feeling weaker. So we know it's not a strength, even though everyone in the audience would say she's good at it. Yeah. She is the authority.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's harming her to try to leverage that and not leverage the fact that she's better when she writes. She's better when she's one-to-one. She's actually better when she has a chance to offer her gift in the medium that she desires, instead of being forced and having it imposed upon her to be on stage.
Well, and I think about how I'd relate to that. I would probably have some fear letting go of the thing that I'm supposedly good at or perceived as good at, but yet harms me and kind of hurts me and doesn't energize me, because in my brain, I would latch onto that thinking like, don't lose that component because you're so good at it. Like, you'd be dumb to do anything else, but that might be preventing you from pursuing a much better path.
Well, Stephen, you're really perceptive, and that's one of the things I admire about you. One of your strengths that I get to experience is that you have this empathic capacity to understand other people's experiences because you're paying attention to your own and because you can feel what other people are experiencing. And she exactly had that. There was this fear. That's why she called me up. It's 2 days before she's supposed to be in Boston. And she's like, "You're my coach. Can you go speak for me?" And that's not my role. I would have loved to go and be on the stage and address her audience and tell her message. But I made a promise to myself that that wasn't my role. And so we found somebody else to go in her place. But the way we did that was she called up so confused because on one hand, here's the left brain saying, they're paying me this much money. Every person that comes is getting one of my books. I'll have book signing and book sales from this, and I'll get to influence people. This will be recorded. So it makes sense. They've already paid for my flight. And she said, I'll probably lose all that opportunity plus another $2,000. That was a left brain. And of course it was like, I'm afraid, because isn't this how we make money? Aren't we supposed to use our talents to make money? This is one way I can use my creative talents to make money.
Yeah.
Because she's a philosopher. She is a creative. She's used doodling and drawing as part of her creativity. She's used her past. So here she is thinking the right answer is to buck up and go to Boston. But in reality, her gut is wrenching, her heart is breaking, and her mind is crashing. The head, heart, and gut, the multiple brains are just offline. And so we talk about what she really wants, and I took her through a multiple brain integration technique, which on a side is neuroscience, cognitive linguistics, behavior modeling. So it's a certification I went to Australia to get because I could tell it would help my clients really hear their truth. Because one of the taglines at SoulSalt is, find your truth, then live it. What she needed to do in that moment of decision was to find her truth. So I took her through the dialogue, and basically her heart was saying, the most important thing I need to know is that I can earn a living other ways than speaking. And what the head needed to do was go into the future, and she started to rattle off 5 or 6 new business ideas that would be very easy for her to implement within 30 days and start making money. So I came back to the heart and I said, what do you value about this? And she says, well, it feels more true. And then we asked her gut instinct, which is, according to the neuroscience, our gut is where our courage center is. It's where we take action, or we put a boundary and we say we won't act. It's where deep self-identity is. And when I asked a question about deep self-identity, who's standing up for you right now and saying no to Boston? And she was like, the best of me. This is going to be hard, but I can't leave my family. I can't leave right now. It's going to tear me apart. At the end of the day, she made that decision based on being able to feel her truth run through her head, heart, and gut systems. The enteric brain, the cardiac, and the mental brain. When she felt it, she was standing in her truth, and she was able to say no to Boston with great assurity and realize something else is going to show up. And it did. As soon as she said no, 2 or 3 other ways to make more money with less pain, more ease, and more joy showed up. So there's always a negotiation that's going on, and you have to be willing to really look at yourself and look at those fears and realize underneath them, they're telling you something.
Could it be that they're telling you that is your strength?
Tell us more. What do you mean? What did you just see or feel?
I mean, I've had instances in my life where I've had fear and it told me that is my strength somehow. But in the story you just told, it was telling her that it didn't bring her peace.
Yes. So it wasn't her strength.
Yeah.
Yes, but you're right. Sometimes I've experienced this, and maybe this is what you're talking about, is when fear and excitement exist on this almost the same plane. For instance, I went for a walk yesterday with my youngest child, who we're sending off tomorrow morning on a digital nomad journey where she will spend 12 months around the globe, a new place every month. She's also one of our employees that does our social media and digital production, so she can do this. She can be away from the office. And I asked her, what are you experiencing? And she said, the greatest amount of fear and the greatest amount of excitement. So I would, to your point, say, sometimes the greatest amount of fear in juxtaposition with excitement is telling us this is our path. And of course there would be fear because it's new and it's begging us to be the biggest, brightest, boldest version of ourselves, which we've proven over and over again. Marianne Williamson talks about this. Mandela talked about this, that those things that scare us the most are often parts of our greatest destiny, calling us out. And we're more afraid of that than we are those things that maybe we perceive are our weaknesses. Playing big is harder and more fear-ridden than playing small. So to your point, does that kind of get at what you were saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems like it's important to distinguish what the root of that fear is, or when fear is a signal or of pain, or when it is connected to that excitement and empowerment.
Yes.
Because it's not so much that anytime you feel fear, that's a good thing, or anytime you feel fear, that's a bad thing. It's like, that's just an emotion. And then let's figure out what it is.
And you said the underlying is more of a, what do I feel in my gut?
So there are 3 places where we can get internal wisdom. And esoteric practices have told us for years, listen to your heart, follow your gut. But now neuroscience tells us that in our brain, our head, where a lot of us get stuck and a lot of us try to make our decisions, we have billions of neurons. We have these neural networks that come together that give us the prime function of creativity. right brain thinking, which is imagination and creativity, it's innovation, it's ideation. And then it has left brain function, which is more linear, logical analysis. Put those together, we can make meaning. We have a language center in our head brain. So there's so much going on in our head that a lot of times we acquiesce to that and think, well, that's where I reside. But we've found that our core values, which is something we can talk about in a moment, because they sort of tie into this discussion too about fear and how to discern what it's telling us. When we stay in our head, we can only calculate and formulate certain things because the prime function up there is creativity. So it's like between the left brain and the right brain, where do we find the creative solution in the middle? And how can we make meaning out of this? And how can we express it in a language? That's what our head brain's for. In our heart, if we just drop below that and we go into the heart has far fewer neural networks. If we were actually to take a cadaver, pull out the heart, start slicing it, looking under a rudimentary microscope, we'd find it has about 150 to 200,000 of these neurons and the network that we can literally lean into. But what happens inside the heart is more and more the research is showing this is where the soul resides, is in the heart. This is where the soul talks to us. And so we know that a person's Be True system, SoulSalt, we call it the Be True system. What values do you align to, the things that are most important to you? Those come from the firings of the neurons inside of the actual organ called the heart. Our connections with people, our relationships with things and people, those are the neurons that are in the heart. So literally, when we do a heart transplant and someone passes away and donates their heart, the core value system and this mechanism, this brain that's giving that passion and everything else goes inside another person. Oftentimes, a part of that person's personality changes.
That kind of blows my mind thinking about that. like
yeah,
transplanting somebody, like I know that happens, but with what you're talking about, like the implications of a heart transplant are so much more than the physical compatibility of will this heart function, this
Isn't
physical body. That just blew my mind.
It's mind blowing.
Say that.
and I've talked to people who's one person in particular, a client from 3 years ago, whose husband had that, and she was like, okay, he's never liked motorcycles or hamburgers, jazz music, and this is what he is gravitating toward. Wow. And she says, like, he's having a midlife crisis, but he's in his 70s. How is this happening? Unreal. Yeah. So, and then we drop down to the enteric system, which is what we might call in multiple brain integration, the gut brain. Many people have been calling it the second brain for a long time. In the 90s, this research was available to us, and now we're accessing it. And a few years ago, I went to Australia to figure out how do I integrate this into the knowledge I give to my clients and work with. And the enteric brain is very special because it starts at our throat, back of our mouth, and goes all the way to where we go to the restroom. So if you think about it, this travels through our body. It only has millions compared to the head brain that has billions of these neurons and networks and ganglia memory. They all have memory. But its specific function is to help you decide to take action or not. So if someone's depressed or having a hard time taking action, it's going to be gut. So the fear could be something the heart feels, and the fear could be something the gut feels. And discerning what it is, you sometimes have to talk to those and not the head. The head is the worst part of that mechanism to talk to. And so I can tell a lot of times, and you've experienced this when we've been talking, our fear-based reaction for most of us is we get into our head and we try to figure it out. And that's not where we're going to resolve fear. In fact, a tool for your clients who are your people who are listening, your audience, is to go online and Google emotion wheel or emotions wheel and go to images, and you'll see several examples and download one. Get a copy of it. This is like a map. So when you're having, let's say you're experiencing fear, you can look at the fear and then find out what are all the ways that fear expresses itself. And then there's this cool thing on some of those maps is if you, let's say that's in the 12 o'clock position on the wheel, if you look at the direct opposite, the inverse, and you go down to like the 6 o'clock, you're going to see other emotions that are just the inverse. So you can sit there with a wheel and go, I'm feeling fear, but what would I rather feel in this moment? What is the fear telling me to have that I don't have? And you look down and it might be freedom, empowerment, something quite inspired. And then you go, okay, I could focus on the fear, or I can let the fear tell me what I'm really seeking and what it's trying to direct me toward.
So like alchemy or transmutation.
Beautiful. Yes. Yes. That applies here. That's a great connection.
Awesome.
Yeah. I knew you guys would connect. One thing that popped into my head as you were talking about that, I was thinking about the very physical feelings that we have when you're talking about the throat and your bowels, that system. How?
Yes, so that's the enteric brain.
Enteric
brain, yeah.
So it made me really think about lump in your throat.
So when you have a lump in your throat, it's your gut trying to talk to you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's telling you to move.
Well, it might. So,
okay.
So what the gut is trying to do is it's trying to tell you, take action, don't take action. Or it's trying to tell you, you're frozen down here. You're discouraged. You're depressed. You don't have action. Or it's time for you to be courageous. Or it is time for you to hold your words. So just know that deep identity is in there. You have a lump in your throat. It might be because a part of who you really are is trying to get out and it's been blocked. So there are ways to get the blocks out. We just need to know which part of you is talking, and then through some questions and some answers. And the way we arrive at this is we ask you to do some balanced breathing, because all of this runs on the autonomic nervous system. Okay, this is all scientific. So your autonomic nervous system, for those of you who have forgotten, you know what it is. It's just working all the time without even you knowing it. And it's the part of you that blinks without having to tell your eyes to blink. It's a part of you that keeps breathing when you're asleep. So the autonomic nervous system is there to be automatic. It has two polarities that you don't want to stay in. The sympathetic is fight and flight. So you get going, it shuts down a lot of the functions of your body and says run. It gives you adrenaline and it says get the hell out of here. Or it can shut you down. Because we found that in the reptilian world, through evolution, they would shut down and go into this comatose, feigned death. And then the predator would pass them. So it could go to one way or the other, but if it stays in those two polarities, it's not going to function well over time. So in the middle is what we call coherence, which if you think about it, that's a great word, because coherence is a frequency that you can hear and understand. So if we put you through some breathing, and I actually have a tool I can use that we can hook you up and connect you with your breathing patterns to help you see if you're coherent or not. Once you get to coherence, you can hear your head, heart, and gut. It sometimes takes 2 minutes of balanced breathing. Some people get really good at it and they can do it faster than that, which is helpful if you need to make a decision and you only have 30 seconds. So the least thing you could do is take 5 or 6 really clarifying breaths, clear your system, listen to your heart. What does it say? Then your head, then your heart, then your gut, back to your heart, and let the heart be the conductor, because even though it has fewer of these networks, it is the organ that when it pumps, when it beats, everything is working in concert.
Isn't that so helpful? Because I know my own personal struggle is that there's too much up in my brain.
Yeah, you're thinking, you're overthinking
and
things.
Thinking, and there's clearly all of this connections, way more. And then the simplicity of having fewer of those connections in your heart, and it's a lot clearer.
Less options.
Yeah,
it does.
Thank you for taking away that big menu.
So the brain, and in your brain in particular, is one of your strengths. And I could say you think too much, but really the truth is you just haven't learned how to manage that strength. You think exceptionally well. You think beyond what's needed. So the heart can take all that divergent, many varied and unusual thoughts that come up and converge down to what are the essentials, what are the few that are most important, and then help you discern which one or two would be good for you to follow in that moment. Now, how helpful is that?
That's amazing. And it's amazing that we have all these very strong physical feelings to signal us and tell us. Like, it's maybe not as complicated as, well, I know it's not as complicated as I was making it out to be, because all of this is already there if I am just listening and paying attention. When I have the lump in my throat, when I have heartbreak, heartbreak has always been so fascinating to me, like that tight, terrible feeling of heartbreak. I mean, I've never thought about it scientifically like you're explaining it now, but I always wondered, why is there such a specific physical feeling connected to this emotion? But it makes a lot of sense.
It does. And I just came back from the Hamptons, where I'd spent 2 days taking a bioenergy training where we're understanding the biomechanics. It was created by an engineer who shows us how the chakras come into play, because there's the third eye, which really talks to the head brain. You have, your throat chakra, which connects to your enteric, your gut system. You have a heart chakra. You have the solar plexus. You have also the pelvic area, which is another brain that the M-brainers are studying. Some of that would be maybe our sex brain, which most of us became in contact with when we went through puberty. And we know that really had its way with us.
So out of balance.
Out of balance, yes. And so there's so many parts of us that if we start to understand these parts of our soul that are the salt of who we are, that helps us blend who we really are on that esoteric plane to the physical, we can start to make sense and have a stronger, more fulfilling, and maybe effective experience with ourselves, and have greater compassion, imagine passion, feeling like it's well-directed, and having such confidence.
Yeah, you can't really feel with the head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I can personally vouch, I was on the fence for years about the idea of talking to a coach. I was like, I don't know. I don't really need that. I don't understand it. I'm not sure what value I'd get out of it. I knew multiple people who had worked with you and that I trusted and loved, but even still, it's kind of, And so if I can add my endorsement,
Please.
I think that this coaching with you has really been life-changing. And I don't mean that in a small way. And it all started when in our discovery session, you asked me to tune into my heart and my gut. And that completely changed what I thought coaching was going to be. And that was what sold me that day. But then it just went crazy from there. I mean, if everybody had the chance to see you, that was the right fit. That, would be incredible. And that is what's nice even about these other systems as well. If they can't go full on to that leap, there's still so many great ways to access your knowledge and
they can come on. Yeah, we can do the virtual coaching. They can come on to be focused. We have at least 2 more courses like that.
Cool.
Thanks for listening to Part 1's interview with Lyn Christian. She's offering our listeners SoulSalt's unique Be Focused program at a discount, which you can find on our website in the show notes of this episode. It teaches you how to be focused and master time management in a comprehensive course with step-by-step strategies and tactics to take control of your life, thus leading to a happier, more fulfilled life.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope you liked it as much as we loved making it. For more information about us, our guests, or anything else you heard today, please go to detergentinsurgents.com.